All right.
Yeah, that we're about to live stream. And the banter's wonderful, but
Yeah.
we're about to live stream. Thank you. Welcome to this meeting of Glamorgan Spring Bay Council held on the 23rd of May. And I declare the meeting open at 2:01 p.m. Glamorgan Spring Bay Council acknowledges the traditional owners of our region and recognises their continuing connection to land, waters and culture. We pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging. We have all councillors present today. And in the chamber, we have the General Manager, Mr. Greg Ingham, the Director of Works and Infrastructure, Mr. Peter Porch, the Director of Planning and Development, Mr. Alex Woodward, Director of Corporate and Community, Mr. Les Blaine, our planner, Mr. James Bonner, and our Executive Officer, Mrs. Jasmine Kerr. Agenda item 1.3, there are no apologies and no requests for leave of absence. Agenda item 1.4 is in attendance. We have dealt with. 1.5 is late reports. General Manager, I don't believe we have any. Thank you. Agenda item 1.6 is the declaration of interest or conflict. I now request elected members to indicate whether they have one, any interest personally or via a close associate as defined in section 49 of the Local Government Act 1993, or two, any conflict as described in Council's Code of Conduct for councillors in any item included in the agenda. Councillor Luck.
Yes, 8.3, I'll declare a conflict.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If I could request you to do a declaration for the register.
Okay.
A written declaration for the register. Thank you. Agenda item 2 is confirmation of the minutes, the ordinary meeting of the 18th of April. There is a recommendation on page 6. Councillor Woods, thank you.
I'll move that the minutes of the ordinary meeting of council held on the 18th of April 2023 at 2 p.m. be confirmed as a true and correct record.
Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor McQueenie, thank you. Put the motion, all those in favour? Those against, the motion's carried. Thank you. Agenda item 2.2 is the date and purpose of workshops held Tuesday, the 9th of May. There is a recommendation on page 7. Councillor McQueenie.
I move the council notes the information.
Seconder, please. Councillor Edwards, thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against, thank you. There is a further workshop on Tuesday, the 16th of May, and there is a recommendation on page 8. Councillor McQueenie, thank you.
I move that council notes the information.
Thank you. Seconded, Councillor Edwards, thank you. Councillor Churchill.
I wanted to correct, I'm listed there as being present.
And you were
No, I was
actually,
not. It's an apology.
thank you, you were indeed,
Thank
Councillor Churchill, thank you for that. So that will be corrected in the minutes. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Churchill. Public question time is agenda item 3. The General Manager tells me that we have no questions on notice and there are no questions without notice. Thank you. Agenda item 4 is the planning authorities under Regulation 25 of the Local Government Meeting Procedures, Regulation 2015. As chairperson, I hereby declare that the council is now operating as a planning authority under the provisions of the Land Use Planning and Approvals Act 1993 for section 4 of the agenda. There is a recommendation on page 10. Councillor Woods, thank you.
Thank you. I'll move that council now acts as a planning authority at 2:05 p.m.
Seconder. Councillor McQueenie, thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? It's carried unanimously. Thank you. Agenda item 4.1 is DA 2023/0074. There is a recommendation on page 20. Councillor Woods.
Thank you. I'll move that pursuant to section 57 of the Land Use Planning and Approvals Act 1993, and the Tasmanian Planning Scheme, Glamorgan Spring Bay, DA 203/00074 at 258 Harvey's Farm Road, Bicheno, CT 183150/2 be refused for the following reasons. Do I need to read the reasons? Which you,
I believe so, councillor Woods.
I'm happy
Yes.
to do so.
Yes.
So it, failure to meet the requirements of clause 11.3.2 visitor of accommodation. P1C, D and F of 11 rural living zone of the Tasmanian Planning Scheme, Glamorgan Spring Bay, in that the scale of the proposed visitor accommodation is not compatible with the surrounding character and uses within the area, will not retain the primary residential function of the area, and will have an unreasonable impact on owners and users of the right of way. Failure to meet the requirement of clause C262, design and layout of parking areas, P1A, D, E and F of C20 parking and sustainable transport code of Tasmania Planning Scheme, Glamorgan Spring Bay, in that the development has not demonstrated that the shared right-of-way driveway in its current construction condition will provide convenient and safe access to all vehicles utilising the driveway. The following advice is provided for information and assistance only.
Thank you. Is there a seconder, please? Seconder, councillor Churchill, thank you. Councillor Woods, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes.
Would you like to close debate then?
I'll close debate if there is any debate. yeah.
Sure. Is there a speaker for the motion? Speaker against the motion? Councillor Churchill? A
Um,
speaker?
Yes, I'll speak for the motion. Firstly, I just wanted to say thank you to our senior planner for the reports. I think this has been well constructed and covers what we need to know. There were some very strong representations against this particular development, and I think for the right reasons. And I think most of what I have to say is actually within the recommendation anyway. I think it's made quite clear in those two dot points for the recommendation that Councillor Woods has already read out. Thank you.
Any other speakers? Councillor Woods, do you wish to comment further?
Thank you. I'll just concur with Councillor Churchill on that in this regard. It sort of beggars my belief that we still have these kind of I wouldn't say they're outrageous. I would say things that push the envelope come to us, and in a place like this, it's just so inappropriate. And I'm glad that it's been recommended for refusal. And I also like to acknowledge the people who sent in representations, because it does take a lot of time to get your ducks in a row when you're writing these representations. So I thank them. And yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Motion's carried unanimously. Under Regulation 25 of the Local Government Meeting Procedures, Regulation 2015, as chairperson, I hereby declare council is no longer acting as a planning authority under the provisions of the Land Use Planning and Approvals Act 1993 for Section 4 of the agenda. The recommendation is on page 21. Councillor McQueenie, thank you.
I move that council no longer acts as a planning authority at 210.
And the Deputy Mayor?
Yeah,
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah, sorry, seconded by the Deputy Mayor. Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Thank you. The motion's carried unanimously. Thank you. Agenda item 5 is the financial reports for the period ending April 2023. There is a recommendation on page 23.
Talk to it in a slight error.
I beg your pardon?
Slight error in the report.
Right,
Yeah.
thank you. Could I have the motion, please? Councillor Churchill?
I move that council receives and notes the financial reports as attached to this report for the period ended April 2023.
Do I have a seconder? Deputy Mayor Simons, thank you. General Manager, you wish to comment?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. There's a minor error in the report that I just want to draw council's attention to. In the profit and loss statement, council will note the notes along the right-hand side of the report, 1 to 13. Note 10, which relates to capital grants, and note 11, which relates to disposal of assets, have been transposed, so swapped around. So if you go down to the notes on the budget variances, which sits below that table, the sale from the loss from sale of land and the carry forward unspent grant funds swaps around. Hopefully that makes sense. But other than that, the report remains the same.
And it answers my question. Thank you very much, because I actually had a question about the loss from the sale of land. Thank you, General Manager. Councillor Young.
Madam Mayor, once again, these accounts are in pretty good nick. But what concerns me is that we have a number of planning appeal determinations yet to come to a decision, and they're to be found in later on part of the annexures. There's a matter 1 waiting on tribunal determination, 2 waiting on tribunal determination, another one in the tribunal. We have no provision for the contingent liability to council for these hopefully good events. But over the years, we've been before the tribunals a few times, very rarely on our application, but occasionally we haven't been successful and we've had to pay costs. I think there should be a contingent provision in the statement of financial position of a contingent liability for the potential costs of these appeals. And there's a simple way of doing it. It's done in many accounts. And if you have 10 appeals and we lose 2 and have and in 2 we have an order for costs against us, you could say that 20% of the appeals would result in a loss and a contingent financial liability. And if the average liability per appeal might be X, then you could say that the contingent liability is X, or in some similar method. It's easy to determine. It's for us to know that there is a potential risk to council for financial cash. It mightn't be payable this year, it might be payable next year. And what triggered me about it was a report in today's Mercury about the ongoing saga of one of the matters that have been before the RUMPAT, as we call it, Resource Management Planning Appeal Tribunal, to the Supreme Court, then referred back to RUMPAT, as now known as TASCAT, and extra evidence will able to be adduced according to one of the tribunal decisions. And it's not us adducing the evidence, but we go back and forwards in these places from time to time, and it is a cost. And I think 2.5 years ago, we had to pay $100,000 and some other parties' costs. These days, we don't know what there is, but we should make some contingent provision for it. I'm sure there's an accounting method to do it, but otherwise I support the accounts. I think that. And
Thank you.
good job.
Thank you, Councillor Young. Your point is certainly taken. I wonder if Ms. Blaine would like to comment around that, or the General Manager. Councillor Young, Councillor Young's. Councillor Young's
Madam
suggestion.
Mayor, I can just say one thing. I mean, a contingency, to put a number on that contingency is obviously, if we were going to do that, is obviously difficult. But I'd just like to make a general comment about the fact that in this current year, we're in financial year, council has been faced with, and what we're talking about here is unforeseen costs, unbudgeted for costs. Council has been faced with several unbudgeted or unforeseen costs, and we've been able to, thanks to our financial prudence, if you like, being able to absorb those costs without having to take other measures, drastic measures. So I do know that there's potential for that, but I'm confident that we can absorb a lot of those costs. And if we can't, there'll have to be a budget provision that council would need to make. It has to be a line item in the budget. It's not a number that's out there. It has to be a line item in the budget. What that line item is, what it should look like, I don't know.
General Manager, I've just explained how it can be done.
Deputy Mayor.
Just like to comment, and it's along the lines of our general manager. I understand councillor Young's concerns there, but if you look through our trading sheet at the moment, our profit and loss, and we talk about having contingencies, we've got an 11% increase in user charges, 15% in grants. We've got a 40% increase in interest and revenue investment. These are all windfalls, I consider. Contributions are up 265%. So revenue is well up. And then if you go and look at our operating expenses, we've got employee costs down 6%, material and services down 9%. So the business, if we want to call it a business, which I don't, but the numbers have a contingency amount in them, and we probably can ride costs at times as they come to us without having to sit money aside in case.
And I think if I may, I take councillor Young's point. There certainly is an issue around having some funds there for this thing. Unfortunately, with planning matters, it really becomes a little bit crystal ball, doesn't it? And unfortunately, our crystal ball gets a tad cloudy from time to time, I think, in relation to planning matters.
Very, very hard to forecast in actual dollars.
Yeah.
Would the director corporate want to make any comment in this regard?
Any comment, Ms. Blaine?
There's no contingency at this stage for this.
Yeah.
I'm sure Ms. Blaine has taken on board councillor Young's comments, so thank you for that. Any other questions around the financial reports? Councillor
Thank
Woods?
you. Yes. Just a couple of questions with regard on page 79 of the report. Number 8, it says work budgeted, not completed, local roads, community infrastructure grant for buildings, courthouse amenities, Coles Bay Annex, Swansea Cricket Net and Spring Bay toilets. Where are the Spring Bay toilets? What are the Spring Bay toilets?
Work we're doing, we're doing
Is it
work.
Spring Beach toilets?
Oh,
Spring Beach.
Right,
Yeah.
right, thank you.
Oh, sorry,
Yeah.
Bay. Through Madam Mayor, so we've got a project there to upgrade the toilets at Spring Beach.
Yeah.
Right, so
So-
that should be Spring Beach toilets.
Yeah,
Yep.
so
Okay.
if that could be corrected for the purposes of the minutes, that would be good, thank you.
And if we go down further to 11, which is now 10, carry forward unspent grants not forecasted Spring Bay Recreation Ground. I take it that's the Tribunna Recreation Ground, yes. Could, because if you go down further in the reports on page 82, it sounds like I'm nitpicking, but I'm actually just proving that I do read the agenda. Sorry, didn't help myself.
You all believe that?
It says Tribunna Recreation Ground Clubhouse
Yes,
on page 82. So
Yeah.
just those couple of little things. And on page 82 under buildings,
right.
yep, helipad Swansea Emergency Services. Where are we at with that?
You want to comment, Director?
Through you, Madam Mayor,
You are.
that project is just waiting on design to be able to enable a resubmission of the DA.
Right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Porch. Are there any other comments? Deputy Mayor?
I'd just like, through you, Madam Mayor, to the General Manager, could you just give me a little bit of context around 10 loss from sale of land, which I'm assuming is now 11, is it? Is that? what you're saying, which is a net gain loss on disposal of assets, but it's described as loss from sale of land.
Correct, so yeah, 10 and 11 swap around. I'll ask the director to expand on that. Well,
But
oh, sorry.
I think the microphone was just there, Ms. Blight.
So, if I'm correct, then the $260,000 relates to the loss of disposal of assets.
But does it, or is it the 53? If we're swapping 10 with 11, what's the number? Perhaps, sorry, I'll leave it with Ms. Bloom.
So there's several items that are in that line. So there's disposal of small vehicles that have happened throughout the year, which are generally all positive contributions. But the sale of land that we had recently to the state government was already had a revaluation on that asset in our books. And when we sold it, it was slightly below that valuation. Hence, from a bookkeeping point of view, there was a loss on the sale.
The 53, yep. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Blight. Councillor McQueen.
Thanks, Mayor. Through you to, well, actually, I'm not sure which of the directors, but can I just have some clarification on the comment in number 6, where developers are funding their own solution? What do we mean where we use the word solution?
Madam Mayor. So just come back to the note, was note 6?
Yeah, page 79. So it seems like there's some sort of specific stormwater solution that's being used somewhere.
Councillor McQueen, could I just clarify which note you're talking?
Number 6.
Number 6,
Yeah.
thank you. Public open space contribution and subdivision,
Yep.
and subdivision contribution higher than their budget.
And
Bruce,
then it says stormwater contribution
Or stormwater,
budgeted
okay.
will not occur as developers are funding their own solution. And I
Okay.
just want to understand what we mean by solution.
Yeah, so through you, Madam Mayor, we'd budgeted to make a contribution towards towards additional stormwater works that would be required in concert with the development. So the development was contributing additional stormwater to our system.
Yep.
Which would require an upgrade of the stormwater system if it was proceeding in the way that was originally intended. Through review, through pricing the works that were likely to be required, a different solution was determined. Not necessarily a final solution, but in terms of what we could require of a developer, it was about as much as we could do. And as a result of that, the funds that were set aside by council were not required to go ahead with any works at this stage. Thank
you. So just then the solution that's being used isn't something that incurs additional costs into the future because it's not generic, is my concern.
Through you, Madam Mayor, there will be, it's not a simple situation that this one relates to. There are 2 developments which are back to back, which involves 2 different developers who contribute to the one waterway. They don't necessarily have to work together, but we've endeavoured to get a joint solution. The water that they contribute into the system is only a part of the water which comes from up and above their location beyond the highway. The majority of the water that comes through that system comes from up and beyond the highway. And at this stage, any upgrade of the system that would allow for a complete solution to that would be a significant cost to council in the order of about $500,000. So we're not in a position to fund that at present. And we look forward to the day when there's some development above the highway which will assist council in funding some of that that solution further on. So yes, there is a cost to council down the track. The system has been working at the level that it does for many years. And whilst that produces problems on occasion, it's not so bad that we need to do something immediately.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Porch. Are there any other questions or comments on the finances? Yes, councillor
Oh,
Woods?
sorry. can I-
No, don't be sorry.
Oh,
By all means, ask.
Thank you. On page 86.
Of the attachments?
The attachments. I struggled to read that because I found it all over the place. So you've got a ongoing planning appeals number, an address, proposal, council decision, appellant, process, appeals outcome and
Could,
date
um,
resolved.
Councillor Woods, could I just
Yeah.
mention that that's actually part of agenda item 7.2.1, which is the Director of Planning and Developments.
Is it?
I think that's what you're referring
That's
to.
what it says.
So could I ask you to
Yes.
defer your question until we get to Mr. Woodward's report?
Most definitely.
Thank you. If there are no other financial questions on the financial statements, I will put the motion. All those in favour? It's carried unanimously. Agenda item 6 is the section 24 committees. There is a minutes of the meeting of the Tribunal Recreation Ground, and there is a recommendation on page 26. Councillor Woods, thank you.
Thank you. I move that the minutes of the Tribunal Recreation Ground Advisory Committee held on the 30th of March be received and noted.
Seconder, please. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Edwards, thank you. Any questions or comments? Councillor McQueenie?
Yeah, just to see if there is any additional information available on the tennis course lights and the correction of where they're pointing at the moment.
It's probably an operational question that should be directed to Mr. Porch or Mr. Woodward out of session. Councillor McQueenie, I think that would be the best way to deal with it.
Okay.
we may.
In the context of councillor Woods, Mrs. Raspin and Mrs. Sweeter to meet with Adrian, was it discussed there?
I was about to point this out
Yeah.
to council. That meeting didn't take place with Mr. O'Leary.
Okay, right.
I met by myself with Mr. Porch at the time and brought up a couple of situations within that were, and no, the lights weren't part of the discussion.
Right, okay, thank you.
So councillor McQueenie, I'm sure Mr. Porch will be happy to have a conversation with you out of session.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Churchill?
Really, just by way of a comment, it appears that there's just ongoing vandalism here that is getting a bit out of hand, and I'm not sure what we can do about all this, but just want to bring it to the attention of community that they also have some responsibility to assist in matters like this and to inform those people who need to know if they're aware of who might be causing this damage. Thank you.
Councillor Woods?
Can I address that one? Thank you, Mayor. In relation to that, councillor Churchill, there has been much discussion with regards to the vandalism that is taking place in that particular vicinity. The timekeeper's box keeps being broken into and walls kicked in and so on and so forth. And I do believe that there had been some conversation prior to this that they were going to put in a steel door frame and a steel door and so on and so forth. However, we also at the committee meeting, we're talking about purchasing CCTV because it's not just in the timekeeper's box, it's under the veranda as well. And just for everybody's information too, we now have a rabbit plague up there, which is causing some sort of distress to the footballers, tripping over and hurting themselves in holes. So there is ongoing issues within the ground.
Councillor Young?
I'm concerned about the rabbit plague. holes in the ground can cause trouble, and we don't want someone with a broken ankle. It happened out at the racetrack, and the horse went for a 6. The jockey was thrown in the air. The horse landed on the jockey, and it cost Tasmanian Racing many tens of thousands of dollars. My firm acted for the plaintiff, so we must get rid of the rabbits.
Yes, they have been notified. Not the
The
rabbit.
rabbit, yeah, well done.
Bugger off.
No, we've notified the rabbits to leave, councillor Woods, have we?
Well done, councillor Woods.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Any other questions or comments on the section 24 committee report? If there are nothing further, I'll put the motion that it be received. All those in favour? Those against, carried unanimously. Thank you. Agenda item 7 is the information reports. 7.1 is the Director of Works and Infrastructure. There is a recommendation on page 31. Deputy Mayor Simons.
I'll move that council notes the information.
Thank you, Mr. Seconder. Councillor Woods, thank you. Are there any questions, Deputy Mayor Simons?
I'd just like to highlight the fact that in general, we've had 151 days
Hmm.
since last lost time injury, which I think is just fantastic.
It is
And
indeed.
the other point there is I noticed there's the new mower getting about Bicheno and it looked great and it's doing a wonderful job. Nice to see.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Councillor Woods.
Thank you. It's on page 28. So we've got the 30-minute parking sign outside of Trotterburn Post Office. Signage ordered. I was just wondering if we could possibly have some of those signs ordered for the marina area. And which would probably alleviate the situation and the issue within that area. That's one of them. On page 29, we have under waste management, Coles Bay green waste shredding completed, and just wondering how that has been received from the community.
George.
Mayor, no volume of shredding has been distributed to the community at this date.
Thank you. And one more. Under parks, playgrounds, reserves, walking tracks, cemeteries, top point, 3 tree assessments carried out in April. Now, I did speak with Mr. Porch about a couple of trees to be looked at that are right on close to the road. Are they one of those trees? Whatever.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I'll have to check with Darren and see which ones were done.
Okay, thank you.
Any other
Thank you.
questions? Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Porch? Councillor McQueenie?
Just one quick one, which is just wanting to clarify with the Wyalangta Road work and the contract that's referred to in Capital Works.
I'm sorry, councillor
Sorry.
McQueenie.
Just to clarify the Wyalangta Road work that it refers to, how far are we responsible, if you like? How far does that work go?
It's about 18 kilometres, if my memory serves me correctly, Mr. Porch, is that right?
It's pretty close, yeah.
Pretty close? I'm pretty close.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
so we have the responsibility for about 18, 20 kilometres
Yeah.
of Wyalangta Road.
Thank you.
I just have 2 things. First of all, referring to what councillor Woods said about the limited parking signs outside the post office, I'd just like to thank Mr. Porch for his consideration of that. It came about because we have a number of elderly people who were struggling to get parking outside the post office with the influx of camper vans and that were parking there for extended time. So Mr. Porch very kindly gave consideration to that request. My question is on page 31 and it relates to the Saltworks boat ramp. It appears that we have yet another delay to this. Do we have any sort of time frame on how long it's going to take to do the Parks Reserve activity assessment, Mr. Porch?
And that's a very good question.
The crystal ball's very cloudy and the piece of string's quite long, I take it.
If we were to measure it on the time it's taken for the assessment for the Gulch, I'd say it could be years away. If we were to measure it on the assessment for some other projects, it could be 6 months. So we understand that parks are quite understaffed in that area, and when we do get a response that is full and appropriate, But yes, it is a bit of a piece of string. We don't know.
Yeah, Mr. Porch, I think if I may, this toilet, the toilet in that area is really quite important as well. And I just would hope that this is not going to impact on the toilet ban because of the issue around contamination for the oyster farmers there. So I'm just sort of hopeful that this whole assessment, this RAA assessment, is not going to impact on the toilet installation. But it is.
Madam Mayor, that's included in the assessment. Parks are doing the assessment, which we appreciate. They're certainly, pick that up on their end to do that. So they're certainly participating in the process. But yes, the toilet is part of that assessment.
Thank you. Thank you.
Two
Mr.
quick-
Redwoods.
Two quick comments. The good on the Visionary community for funding the boxing out of the footpath area up there. It's a credit to them to get that, go ahead with that and get that done. And also probably to Mr. Porch, the scope review to review costs of design continued with Visionary Triangle, same answer as the last one, I presume.
Through you, Madam Mayor, yes, no further advance on that. We've endeavoured to get some response from the designer and haven't had response from him. So we're probably going to make some executive decisions on that, I think.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions or comments on Mr. Porch's report? Nothing further. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Carried unanimously. Thank you. And item 7.2 is the Director of Planning and Development's report. There is a recommendation on page 35. Councillor Woods, thank you.
Thank you. I move that council receive and note the report on the activities on the Planning and Development Directorate.
Thank you. Is there a seconder, please? Councillor McQueenie, thank you. Now, Councillor Woods, I believe you have a question
Thank
in
you.
relation to this.
I found it quite difficult to read the planning determinations appeals because of the collation of it. So it's only a, I don't know what you call it, probably criticism. Sorry, but observation, there you go, that's better. It was, to me, it's sort of I struggled to find where
Where the line was.
the
councillor.
line was. So if that could be sort of looked at, Mr. Woodward, that'd be great.
Mr.
Through
Wood,
you, Madam Mayor, thanks for the feedback noted. I think that it's a formatting issue when we've put it
That's the
across.
word I was
So
looking
we'll make sure it's rectified for next.
It's for me, thank you very much. Other than that, the report's very good, thank you.
any other questions or comments from councillors? General Manager would like to make a comment.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's just a general comment, but I think this report, as the other information reports do, highlight the very wide and diverse activities that the various directors are involved in. In Director Woodward's portfolio in particular, if you take aside the medical centres, which are a major part of what he does and takes up a significant amount of his time and effort, when you look at across the other bits of that directorate, environmental health, building and plumbing, animal control, I think it gives a sense of just how much work is involved in that particular, in Alex and his team's particular space, in Mr. Woodward's particular space. So I hope that council, this report at the very least helps to give an appreciation of that.
Thank you. Other questions or comments for Mr. Woodward? Put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Motion's carried unanimously. Thank you. Move on to agenda item 8.1 is the dog management and environmental health fees and charges. There is a recommendation on page 41. Councillor Woods, thank you.
I'll move that council, approve the following dog management fees for 2023-24 financial year effective 1st of July 2024. 2023. And 2, approve the following environmental health fees for 2022-24 financial year effective 1st of July 2023. If I may, Mayor, before I go further, did I say 2023-24 financial year in the first one? I might have said.
I'm not sure.
It's all good.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Seconder, please. Deputy Mayor, thank you. Questions or comments? Yes, councillor McQueenie, then councillor Young.
Thanks, Mayor. Just a question regarding fees, and I suppose this is for dog related issues, and this is in the context of the dog management strategy going forward. Is there a reason, and if there are, if you like, a serial offender about dogs getting out and when there are significant offenders? I noticed that we talk about an increase in the second time it happens, but has there been any discussion of increase even on the third and subsequent? I know it's quite high still, but if we're going to effectively manage these dogs and they do cause grief to humans, property and wildlife, whether we might consider, you know, a 10% increase or whatever every time it becomes third, fourth, fifth.
Sure. General Manager, is this for you to answer or Mr. Woodward?
No, I think it's for Mr. Woodward.
Mr. Woodward. Thank you.
Through you, Mayor, thanks for the question. Generally in other councils, it's usually only the first offence, and it's a one set fee for any time that the dog's collected. So we set charges that are associated with council works. What we don't set fees and charges for is infringements. So for instance, under the Dog Control Act, if the dog is at large, we have the ability to infringe as well.
Yep.
So there is additional penalties on this. Good question. There hasn't been discussions held in regards to that, but that's certainly something that we could look at as part of the review into the dog management policy.
Yep. Serial offenders.
Thank you. Councillor Young.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I raised a matter on page 40. Dog nuisance complaint fee refundable upon confirmation. I don't think it's got anything to do with religion. I think it's got something to do with confirming that there's been a complaint, and that I assume it means that someone confirms that the complaint is well founded. The difficulty I see in this is that many of our residents are elderly. Our median age is something that Councillor Edwards might be able to enlighten. He's more up to date. Median age of residents here is around 57. And many a public service superannuation system will allow you to retire at about that age. And the elderly are making complaints. They don't do it lightly, I'm sure. And it's difficult enough to make a complaint anytime, even if you have to pay, even if you don't have to pay a fee, because unfortunately, dog lovers do love their dogs, and they sometimes have a very strong feeling about what their dogs do or don't do. And having had a wife bitten by a dog for a landowner nearby, it's difficult to make the complaint. I didn't complain here. I directly went to the dog keeper. I don't think we should charge that fee. It's a deterrent. You might say, look, we operate on cost recovery. So there's some merit in cost recovery, but some things you want done, and we ought not to charge a fee and make it difficult for it to be done. I'd like that matter at some stage to be reviewed by our council officers. Otherwise, I support the motion.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments in relation to it? Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Young. I think that's a very good point, but just a question directed to Mr. Woodward. How many of those fees do we collect?
Through you, Mayor, as in the collection of the nuisance complaints.
Yeah,
So this is the first year that this
had it.
is in here.
yeah, okay.
The reason that it's in here is actually under the Dog Control Act. It does specify a fee. So it talks about when you do submit a barking dog nuisance complaint under the Act, a fee should accompany it, which council decides. Now, so in the past, we haven't collected some of these, and we have received vexatious complaints in relation to barking dogs. So if there's a genuine issue, the fee would be refunded upon confirmation, but it's to bring us in line with, I guess, the other local government organisations in Tasmania, and also to ensure that we make sure that the nuisance complaints are actually legitimate. If someone's suffering financial hardship and this is a deterrent, we would work with them to address that.
Mhm.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Woodward, I have a question in relation to the caravan licence fee. That's in accordance with our environmental bylaw. That's where it sits under.
Through you, Madam Mayor, yes, correct.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Nothing further. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Carried unanimously. Agenda item 8.2 is the Swansea Loo with a view. There is a recommendation on page 44. Deputy Mayor Simons.
I would like to move one, council remove the existing turpentine piles and offer them for sale. And two, council install the second toilet pod at a suitable distance on the northern side of the existing toilet to enable the utilisation of existing sewer and water connections.
Miss,
And I can read that again for you if you'd like, Jasmine, sorry. I don't have a copy for you.
Sorry, just through the mayor, I'm handing out some photographs that I've put into this discussion and this report.
right, thank you.
That'll help the discussion.
This year. Catch the screens, I've got to go off them. Very, very interesting.
Don't worry, they should be coming.
Photograph overload, but I think it was taken for the, to put this into context.
You could propose motion on the northern side of the existing road.
That's, I just, we'll get these around councillor weekends.
During the taking this is.
Oh, plenty of fun, though.
That's- So we have a motion which Mrs. Kerr is just typing into the records now.
Oh.
That's the last.
Another.
There's another one too, one each. More than one, actually, for the extra one.
So councillor Deputy Mayor Simons has moved a motion.
Oh,
Did you get one? At the moment.
I've seen it.
It's a bit of a dig.
Pardon?
It's a bit of a dig. Is this? Yeah, I haven't seen it.
Yeah, but
That's a reasonable point. Mm. Thanks.
So Deputy Mayor, given
Again,
given what's transpired, with the photographs that have been sent around, perhaps I could ask you to read your motion again before we seek a seconder, please.
so one, council remove the existing turpentine piles and offer them for sale. Two, council install the second toilet pod at a suitable distance on the northern side of the existing toilet to enable the utilisation of existing sewer and water connections.
Is there a seconder, please? Councillor Luck, thank you. Councillor Simons, do you wish to speak to the motion?
I'll save that for closing.
So
Thank
that
you.
for closing, any, councillor Churchill, thank you.
I just have a question of the mover, if that's all right.
Yes, sir.
How far north are we talking about here? Is there a location that's in your mind or?
Yeah, close by. Yeah, just 3-4 meters perhaps, depending on investigation.
Okay, well, in that case, while I'm speaking, I just like to put a foreshadowing motion, which is the original recommendation.
Right, thank you. Councillor, any other questions? Any other comments? Speaker for the motion, speaker.
No, can I beg your indulgence to read that again? I had assumed we were talking about the original recommendation. What was your motion?
It is here on the screen.
Ah, sorry, perfect.
Councillor. Yes.
Thank you.
Is it appropriate for me to just make a further comment?
Make a further comment, councillor Churchill, by all means.
By moving it just a few meters from where the original proposal was, I don't think we're solving quite the issue that the community are looking at here. I think there's some concern about, Swansea's just been ranked quite highly in the acceptable or preferred tourist towns in Tasmania. And the community are also talking in terms of not really wanting to be the town that's known for its toilets. And we're going to finish up with a little cluster of toilets at that point on that street side. And I just don't get that that's going to really appeal from the point of view of practicality or the visual effect. And are we going to then will we have it in a position then where it doesn't overlook the children's playground and all those things that were being considered before? This has been going on since 2017, and we've got to get to a resolution of this that is acceptable to community and acceptable to our budgets. There's been quite a lot of money spent / wasted on this project over time. My understanding is that most of that money has not been grant money, not that that justifies the expenditure of it, but it has had an impact on council funds. And I think it's just time to get to a resolution of this that might appeal to the community. Some of the community will disagree, of course, that's what we're here for. But I think that a lot of the community will support it not being at that site. And I think from the point of view of the financial position, we should go back to that original recommendation and look at it in light of turning it into whatever money we can to defer further costs into the future. Thank you.
The General Manager did want to make a comment. Do you want to comment now, General Manager, or allow the councillors to have further comment? Or
I'll just make it at the end if that's okay,
Yeah.
Madam Mayor.
no, by all means.
Yeah.
You make after
the
councillors,
councillor,
right? Councillor Luck and then Councillor Edwards.
I'd just like to make one statement, and that is the need
What,
the
sorry?
need of
Yes.
toilets from a tourist perspective.
Yes.
We're getting more and more of the minibuses, as I call them, the 12-seaters.
Mhm.
And we're back into getting the 50-seater large coaches now pulling up into Noy Street by the historic heritage centre. You get 50 people get out of a bus, they beeline straight across the road, they take photos of the toilet. So that part's working. It's a tourist need, it's a tourist town. We do have the old, as I call them, the underground toilets. They don't really present much of a tourist draw card, and will need at some stage in the future to be redeveloped. So in my mind, having 2 new current toilets is a positive. And the location to the north of the existing loo with the view is under the trees and doesn't interfere with anyone's view. Whereas further along the deck towards the south, it would have been bookends to the walkway. So
Thank you,
Quite good.
councillor Edwards.
I'd just like to say I was at Spring Beach earlier this year with the GM, happened to be there on the same day, when a tourist came up to us and said that I travel all over the world. Those are the best toilets I've ever been to. They're fantastic and absolutely love them, the ones in Swansea. So I think it sort of goes a bit against what you were saying, councillor Churchill. They were very positive about the loo with a view. I think the thing was designed, built and to go there originally, however many years ago it was. And I just think we need to get on and smack the thing up and get on with it.
Councillor Woods.
Thank you. I listened intently to what councillor Churchill was saying and other councillors around the table so far. Did we talk about putting this toilet down, or was there some thought of this toilet going down near the boat ramp at some stage?
If I may, well, I will certainly get the answer from staff, but I think there was an issue around this toilet's designed for reticulated water, and I think there was an issue.
Oh,
around
okay,
that.
yeah,
Is
yeah.
that right, General Manager?
So
Yeah.
I may just make some comments. Sorry, was that the question, councillor?
Can't remember what the other one was.
The toilet was designed initially specifically to sit atop the turpentine poles that you can see in a couple of those photographs. And then was going to be connected to the footpath, the main street, the highway footpath by way of a elevated walkway. For mainly structural reasons, engineering structural reasons, that is no longer an option. There's other issues around that too with accessibility, and there's also issues around that too with what the toilet at that location would overlook. But I think it's important for council to understand, for those of you who may not be totally familiar with the site, to understand the site as part of this discussion. This is the photograph I wouldn't mind you just having a look at. The one, yes, councillor Woods has got it right there. It's got the big blue bench in the foreground of the photograph. That photograph there, that photograph was taken from the existing loo with a view, looking south. Okay, now looking south along the promenade, and you can see the promenade ends at a point. That point where it ends is about 17 meters from the existing loo with the view. My understanding is that that corner, if you like, and there's a bench there, by the way, a green bench. You can hardly see it in the photograph. It doesn't look like the blue one, but against that rock wall, there's a green bench that also overlooks, for tourists or whatever, to overlook the view. I understand from the building manager that that was the proposed location or relocation for the second loo with a view. And that's where the pipe work has been put underground to a point just below that, or quite a long way below that deck. It would still have to be brought up to the deck. If that was the case, and assuming that, you know, council, certainly from a cost perspective, to go and relocate underground pipe work, there would be a significant cost, and that's certainly not identified in my report. But it really only means that there's 15 meters between two toilets, 15. Another 35 meters from that is the toilets that you see. 35 meters from that is the toilets that you see in that photograph, which are fairly substantial, male and female, whereas the loo with the view is unisex, and they have, certainly the male has, you know, is quite large. I'm not saying it's in great nick. This is probably a toilet that council should consider upgrading once we get our toilet strategy and everything done. But that literally is 35 meters from the proposed second loo location, if that was going to be the site. To the north, to the other side, would mean, or further to the south, i.e. off this timber boardwalk, would mean either constructing a new boardwalk or some sort of support to hold the toilet, or putting the toilet on our brand new concrete footpath, which is definitely not something that I would suggest either. So I think council just needs to carefully consider the ramifications of this. The other thing too, in my report, I've got an estimate there of 15 to 20,000. I was made aware of a report that was done in 2019, and I'm sorry I didn't have this before when I wrote the report, because I would have included the numbers in there. A report that was done in 2019 by our building and services manager that actually identified an option to position. There were two options actually that he identified, well, three. One was option one was on the turpentine poles. Let's put that one aside. The other two options were adjacent footpath on Jetty Road, still in the park area, which I think is what we've spoken about here, and on steel columns near the other loo with a view, which is this area that I'm talking about here in the corner. Obviously, this boardwalk would have to be properly supported to take it. And they ranged in the order of, bear in mind, this is 3-4 years old now in terms of price. They range in the order from 40,000 for one option and 72,000 for the other option. On top of that, and one of the councillors raised the issue, on top of that would be operating costs, I'm informed, to maintain the toilet in the order of $10,000 annually. So these are things that just need to be considered in the context of where council's at. As a general and what we want to see in Swansea. As a general comment, there is, I think council just needs to carefully consider the fact that despite future use and growth in tourism, we have two toilets, existing toilets within 50 meters of each other, plus another public toilet block further down the road, the main street, probably no more than 200 meters away. And that this new proposed toilet, which is not going to make the existing positive comments that we get on Facebook and TripAdvisor about what a fantastic asset the loo with the view is, because it is, and I think everyone in this room would agree. The second one isn't going to double that enthusiasm. So I'll just ask council to please consider all aspects of what we're talking about today.
Thank you. Councillor McQueenie.
Yeah, I'd just like to add, and particularly in the context of the costs, that we've got a municipality where there are places that people with disability can't go to the toilet. And to spend money on this rather than addressing the better access in different places, I don't know how we justify that in the context of how many toilets actually exist there. Because if we're going to spend money, I would suggest that we should be making access, not in Swansea, but those sorts of funds to toileting for everybody, not just another loo with a view. And also the only other quick thing I want to say is I just think I'm not that familiar with what you're discussing in sites, but there are good reasons why a toilet overlooking a children's playground would be incredibly inappropriate.
I just want to make another comment, if I may, Madam Mayor, in regards to that. This second location, or any location further to the south, would be closer to, would certainly overlook the barbecue area, but would be closer to the children's playground. But irrespective of that, I think council also needs to consider the fact that we are in the process of developing a municipal-wide ablution strategy right now. It's underway. And that is actually looking at existing toilets, looking at need, in other words, condition of existing toilets, where toilets need to be upgraded, some toilet blocks that need to be totally replaced. And this one here that's just a little bit further down from the existing loo with a view is probably a case in point. And even where there's no current toilets in our municipality, and I can think of one particular area where we get a lot of feedback from the community on, where the council needs to consider new toilets at locations where there aren't toilets. So from a strategic perspective, it would be it would be, I would advise council that we consider this toilet and any other new toilet development in the context of an overall strategy.
General Manager, I have councillor Woods and councillor Young
Yep.
who'd like to comment if I
Yeah.
could go to
thank you.
councillor Woods and then councillor Young.
Thank you. This is my second comment I might say.
That's all right.
Yep, so for the councillors that are new here, this was brought about quite a number of years ago when, and I'll be corrected if I'm wrong, when the forest industry closed, we were trying to invent our communities. And this Loo with a View, we had a presentation done here about loos and all that sort of stuff, all from all around the world and how fantastic they are, and people talk about it. You know, we all talk about the Campbelltown toilets, point in question. At the time when these were proposed, this was proposed, that toilet block was going to be closed, I believe. So that's one point. This is only one toilet, which means the other one that's going is 2 toilets. So, you know, it's only a block. It's not the block of toilets, it's only one toilet. And at the time too, Swansea tourism community was sort of trying to ramp up and get going and whatever, all that. And they were trying to get people to stop in Swansea. They wanted people to stop. And so what better way to make people stop is let's go to the toilet. And then they pop on over the road to the cafe, into the supermarket. They might go into the chemist, the bakery, so on and so forth. And the bakery's got toilets as well. And I think that if this were to go ahead, then that should be closed, you know, because it's doing the job of 2. So I can take the general manager's point in question that, you know, there's a toilet here and a toilet there and so on and so forth. But, you know, if this is in dire need of repair, close it. But I just wanted to give you new councillors some scope around it. But also too, we have the toilet. It's been paid for, like it's there. And it's not really going to make too much difference to our bottom line in that regard, other than the fact that it's going to cost us to install it. So by all means, get rid of the turbines. And look, we've discussed this time and time again. It's time to make the decision. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Woods. Councillor Young.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As an expert in using toilets, having used them for nearly 10 years beyond all of you, there is a need. And Councillor made a comment which I thought was quite wise, if it's correct, and I suspect it is. There are tourist vehicles that come down, minibuses and sometimes bigger. And when they stop, often there's not a long stop. And the bigger buses, you can have almost 40 people on it. And the elderly often do a bit of touring, I know. And the need is greater in spite of the years of experience. The need is greater and queues are a problem. So I support this motion in spite of the very wise foreshadowed motion from Councillor Churchill. I only hope that if it is built, it's not built too close to the entrance to the restaurant, which is on the northern side of the toilet. And it could have an access from the footpath. It's probably not the most important thing to occur at this very minute. And it is a question of cash. But generally speaking, Swansea's midway in our municipality. It's midway from the larger cities. And it is a good spot to stop.
Thank you, councillor
And the
Young.
need needs to be catered for.
Thank you, councillor Young. I have allowed a fair amount of debate around this, and before I go to the deputy mayor to close debate, there's just a couple of points I'd like to make, although councillor Woods did mention one of them. I take councillor Churchill's point about, do we really want to be known for a toilet? Well, Campbelltown went ahead in leaps and bounds when they built their new toilet many, many years ago, because they did become known for having great toilets. Councillor McQueenie talked about disabled. Well, the second toilet like this would offer far greater access in the Swansea area, because with great respect, this is not particularly friendly for anyone with any mobility issues, let alone being in a wheelchair or whatever. And if I may just say to the general manager, it's pretty clear that he's not used the ladies' toilet in that area in this
Well,
one.
that's good. That's a good job. Yeah.
Previously, because it is not a pleasant experience, general manager. So
Madam Mayor, I have been into the gents
I'm
very
sure.
very recently, and that wasn't that pleasant either.
right. So that's my only point.
I'm also
Deputy Mayor, would
pleased you haven't
care
been to the
close
ladies.
Debate on that point.
I will close the debate on that point. You'll have to bear with me because there's been a lot of information come out
Yeah.
that's not exactly relevant to this
Yeah.
conversation in my mind. It's
Yeah.
fairly clear where our general manager's opinion lies on this matter. A couple of things, and I certainly acknowledge councillor Churchill's concerns about you don't want to be known as the toilet town, but having seen the Swansea Loo with a view that's there, it is well designed, it has got good design credentials, and that's what stops you being known for that. You become known for having a very nice spot to stop and use the facilities. So I think that counters that whole argument that you might be known as the town that's got extra toilets more than anyone else. As far as the positioning goes, that got very confusing about, there was 15 different options offered up there for a minute about where it might go. I'm talking about putting it north, fairly close to the existing loo, which tucks it up and out of the way. As far as the visual impact goes, I doubt it makes any difference. I doubt there's any more visual impact by having a second one within a couple of meters of it anyway. I don't think that is any issue. And as I said, it's well designed. It's got great credentials. There was a lot of money spent on that piece of building and that architecture. As far as councillor McQueenie goes, and I think I would, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm assuming it's an all abilities toilet that would allow access to everyone, which ticks that box for me as well. And I assume it would help you in your deliberations. It doesn't overlook the playground in that position because it's well north of the playground. So there's no concern about privacy or anyone being in there overlooking the playgrounds. The costs, and obviously officers would need to do a little investigation here, but I suspect that the service costs to connect it would be far less than moving it to the southern edge because it's actually closer. And I suspect you would be able to connect directly into the services that are right there right now. So those services costs don't become an argument. I don't have an opinion about the underground toilet. I suspect that's probably come to the end of its life, and potentially another one up here might be a good thing. So I think the other thing, the important thing is here that it's important for community confidence that we finish what we agreed to start. The number of people I talk to that go, they throw their hands in the air, what are you doing? You've got the toilet. Why isn't it being there? They're not seeing it as a big visual impact. I think what we're saying now actually puts it into a better position and makes it even a better, more appealing project. It's 90% complete already. We all talk about how well received it is. And I stopped there today and it was interesting. I hope that people didn't think I was lurking about, but I thought half listening into them. And it was an American family and they were talking about what a great restroom it was. They had 2 teenage kids and the 2 parents, and they were going, wow, this is great. Love it. Restroom, love it, restroom. I think if we do complete it, it really helps instill some confidence into the ratepayers and the public that we do what we say we're undertaking. And I think when they see it finished, they'll go, wow, Why haven't we done that? And I think that just makes it easy for admin in the future. It gives good support to them. It allows them to not be working in such a combative environment with the public, and it builds trust within our community. So for all those reasons, I just hope that as councillors, we support it, and I hope if it does get support, that administration can expedite it and get it installed.
Thank you. You've closed debate, Deputy Mayor, so I will put the motion on. Those in favour? Those against? Councillor Churchill, Councillor McQueenie. Could I have the against again, please? Councillor Churchill and Councillor McQueenie, thank you. The motion is carried 6-2. Thank you. Move on to agenda item 8.3, nomination of councillor to the Municipal Emergency Management Committee. There is a recommendation on page 46. Councillor Luck has left the room.
Which is the wrong one, isn't it?
Pardon?
Which one?
Sorry? Yeah, you shouldn't. You didn't have to. No, you didn't. No, anyway, that's right.
It's not, probably not going to affect the outcome, councillors.
Yeah, doesn't matter.
Councillor Churchill,
I move that council appoint Mayor Cheryl Arnold to the Municipal Emergency Management Committee effective 23rd of May 2023.
is there a seconder? Councillor Young, thank you. General Manager, do you wish to speak to this particularly, or Councillor Churchill, do you wish to speak to the motion? But I'm just asking the General Manager, did he want to make any comment in relation to how this came about, other than what's in the report? So do you wish to speak to the motion, or?
Yes, I will, but can I speak perhaps after I have the information?
Certainly can, certainly can.
Well, only thing I was going to add, thank you, Madam Mayor, was it is the norm, and I think this is the right decision for the mayor to be on this committee. In any major natural disaster or emergency event, the mayor is obviously our official spokesperson. If we were to set up a communications centre, an emergency communications centre, the mayor would be in there with the police and the SES and the fire and whoever else was involved. So it's the right decision, and and it came about because obviously Councillor Luck
Chose
withdrew.
to.
Yep.
You didn't have told us why.
Yes, he did say why.
Tell us why.
No, I'd rather not, because
Okay.
there's a current DA process in the way.
Point of order, Madam Mayor, I think seeing that you're quite properly the beneficiary of this motion, when the votes count, and I think you should leave the room during the count.
I did actually raise that with the General Manager and Mr Woodward earlier in the day, and their view was that, no, I didn't have to. Yeah, because it's an
No,
appointment,
that's
it's an
your rule.
appointment, it's an
That's your
appointment
ruling.
to a committee, if you like, not much different to the appointments we do at section 24, when we do section 24.
Madam Mayor, I'm going to vote for you, but you've made the ruling, thank you.
Councillor Churchill, who wish to comment?
Well, I think the General Manager actually has said everything that was.
Were you going to say? Okay.
Be more verbose than I would have been,
Mm.
but I think it is appropriate for you to hold that position quite clearly, and that is in the reports that we read. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Now, as I said, I did talk to the General Manager and Mr Woodward earlier in the day, and both of them felt that there was no issue with me remaining in the room and or voting. So that's where we'll be at. I accept Councillor Luck's the view that he has a conflict in this matter, and I thank him for that consideration. So if there's nothing further, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Motion's carried 7-all. Thank you. Thank you, Mr Porch. Thank you, Councillor Luck. Council has appointed me to the Municipal Emergency Management Committee. Thank you very much. Agenda item 8.4 is the community small grant application from Families Tasmania. There is a recommendation on page 49, Deputy Mayor.
I'd like to move the council approve the application for community small grant funding of $1,000 to Families Tasmania to provide baby and child first aid sessions in Glamorgan Spring Bay.
Seconder, please. Councillor Edwards, thank you. Deputy Mayor Simons, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Just really briefly, I just think it's a good initiative and I think it's well worthy of our support.
Thank you. Any other comments? Councillor Mbuni?
Yeah, I know we're dealing with what we've got in front of us, but I'm just wondering, especially how much remains, whether they'd considered Tribunna at all, if anyone's spoken to them.
It's not, and it's not something we can deal with inside this.
No, I
agenda
appreciate,
item,
yeah.
but it's certainly something that could probably be raised with them. Any other questions or comments? Nothing further. Put the motion. All those in favour? Motion's carried unanimously. Thank you. Agenda item 8.5 is some new street names for subdivisions in Swansea, Spring Beach and Bicheno. And there is a recommendation on page 56. Councillor Woods, was that you?
That was me, but I'll take it back down again. It was good. Yes. Thank you. The council resolved to support the proposed street names Syntax Drive, Swansea, Cumming Place, Spring Beach, and the Cumming be spelt page 53.
At the bottom.
Yep, COMYN.
Sorry, Madam Mayor.
COMYN. Is there a reason why we couldn't spell it that way?
The traditional spelling or the
Traditional
traditional
spelling?
spelling of the word
Yeah.
coming, of the name coming.
Yeah.
Might be only because it would be, well, traditional, but it might be that it's
Nobody would be able-
confusing for emergency services.
Yeah.
and also everybody would get it wrong.
And Shale Way, so we'll leave it at Cumming
Coming,
Place.
CUMMING.
And Shale Way, Bicheno, and submits the names to Place Names Tasmania for approval.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Thank you, Deputy Mayor. That's all, wish to speak to her.
Yes,
Councillor Churchill, I suspect that you.
I know
that-
what, I know, and I'm going to be brave enough to bring this up.
Yeah.
As Councillor
Councillor
Churchill is
Wood.
probably thinking along the lines of some of the place names that we've had. Before.
Yeah.
Just,
Wish to speak to it, councillor?
yes,
Yes,
Mhm.
okay.
I have a problem with the name Cumming Place.
Yeah.
I really do. I think it's totally inappropriate. In this environment, in the way it's said,
Okay,
I've said.
any environment. It's like human powder. I'd rather it be called human than coming. All right, so I've just embarrassed myself in front of everybody, but it had to be said. I'm sorry, councillors. Don't ask why.
No, Madam Chairman, I know, Madam Mayor, I know a number of people who have their name called Cumming. I don't feel embarrassed in speaking to them.
Perhaps they could.
And I
be
wouldn't feel
Cummings
in
Place.
speaking at
You might be
embarrassed,
Cumming.
whatever place they live at. I'll support this motion.
I understand.
Councillor Churchill, did you wish to speak?
Not at
No?
all, thank you.
I understand Councillor Wood's comment.
Councillor
but
Edwards,
I
yes,
know the family and their three boys, and they've all gone through school with my children. It's never been an issue. The thing we are alluding to.
I don't know quite what we are alluding to.
It's
right,
called
councillor
that.
Mc-
Lucky you're old, Councillor Young.
I'm afraid, and it's because I've been a teacher of year 11 and 12s, that my immediate thoughts were the same, that it will just be the subject of that and be lovely to be called Cummings Place, maybe.
Yes.
Mm.
You grow out of it.
Is there any reason why
Yeah.
we add an S to
Me.
Mr. Bonner, is there any, would you like to comment and maybe put some reasoning into this for us,
More
please?
detail.
To you, Mayor. If council wish to choose an alternate name, they're most welcome to. It'd be something that would need to be checked through Place Names Tasmania first to see that the name was available. This was a name put forward by the developer. And you could say, I've included the reasons why, but if council wish to choose another name, it's up to council. There's no reason why they can't. It'll just need to be checked first.
Through Madam Mayor, the council is suggesting just add in an S to coming, so it becomes Cummings.
Happy with that?
I look,
Happy with that?
considering that Cumming Place was available through place names, I'd imagine nothing came up, and if it was Cummings, it would have come up as well. It comes up with anything that's close to it. I would probably check it again, but I don't really see a concern with that.
So how,
Put the S.
councillor Woods,
Vote,
yeah.
so I moved it. And
Can I just clarify, councillor Woods, you've actually read the motion now as Cumming Place, but you're suggesting that it should be Cummings Place. Yeah. I'm not sure how we deal with that in terms of a motion.
I've agreed to the amendment.
You would have to have an amended motion through you, Madam Mayor, with the S, with Cummings.
We would have to have an amended motion, would we?
Does that have to go back to the developer? Because it's his,
It's their choice.
there's a matter of courtesy.
Their choice, I don't think.
Well, then it would have to, if that was the, I don't believe it has, because it's not a substantial change, but if council was concerned about that, then we'd have to bring a report back again. We wouldn't have time. to
It's
do
a
that.
political matter.
So, General Manager, how do, Mr. Bonner, can you give us some direction on how, as chair, I should deal with this, please? I'd appreciate that.
If council would choose to have Cummings Place, it is essentially council's decision. We give the developers an opportunity to put forward a place name. We don't have to agree to it.
Right.
Or council doesn't have to agree to it, I should say. And you can always propose an alternative. I think it is close enough and it's still in the family name that he was proposing, that I don't see why it would be an issue personally.
Also be construed as belonging to the Cumming,
Oh,
with an
apos-
S on the end,
apo-
couldn't it? As
apostrophe
belonging to.
Apostrophe S,
Or
yeah.
S apostrophe, which
Yeah.
one?
Uh,
Whole lot or just one?
So on that basis then, can councillor Woods's motion include the word, so it could be read as resolve
Cummings.
Cummings Place as part of the motion? If council, it seems a very convoluted way to get an S added by having to have an amended motion and the like. So I'm personally, I'm comfortable with councillor Woods reading the motion again with S on the end if
I accept that.
councillors are happy
I
to do
just
that.
ask, is so we're not voting on Cumming Place, we're just bunging it? Is
No,
that what's
it will
happening?
just be this motion, but coming, it will have an S on the end
Yeah,
of
but
it.
so we're not getting the option to vote on Cumming Place.
Where it's going to be put.
Well, we could put,
Oh, I see what
Can-
you're saying.
yeah.
Sorry.
we could
Because
put-
that might get up. And we might need to add an S.
Okay, so we could put this motion, we'll put
Mhm.
this motion. Oh, this is really going to be quite confusing, isn't it?
Mhm.
I don't understand
You
the,
can- Sorry, Madam Mayor, you can
Yeah.
put the motion, the original motion.
Yes.
Council can vote. And then councillor Woods can provide an amended motion.
I guess-
You can't do that, but
I
never
think-
mind.
Sorry, sorry, councillor Churchill.
Yeah, if I may speak, I
Yes.
don't believe that's correct unless that's already put as a foreshadowing motion. If the motion is put and it's lost, the motion is lost.
Yes.
My understanding is that a foreshadowing motion should be put if, as an alternative, if the original motion is lost.
Mm.
So the mover can't do that. I will put that motion
I-
as the foreshadowing motion if
Bef-
you wish.
before you go ahead, councillor Churchill, can I just suggest that the way around it may be an amended motion, which we would deal with rather than a foreshadowed motion. So we would need an amended motion which has an S on the end of Cummings Place.
Yeah,
An amended motion.
Point of order, Madam,
Yes,
Mayor. You can't amend something that doesn't exist.
yes,
If
you
the
can.
motion is in fact lost,
No.
it is then non-existent.
But we haven't put the motion yet, councillor Young. What I'm suggesting is that there can be an amendment and we can have up to 2 amendments on the table at any time. So I just need an amended motion, I believe.
Well, Madam Mayor, I think councillor Churchill's suggestion is a way forward.
yeah,
That I agree, councillor Woods can't do the foreshadowed motion, but councillor Churchill or any other councillor can.
But we have 2
That's
choices here,
it's the
General
easy way
Manager.
out,
We
I
have
think.
an amended motion, which is much easier to deal with than a foreshadowed motion. Because the amended motion, if a councillor was of a mind to put an amended motion, which would only include an S on the end of coming, we would have then the amended motion would go forward and then that would become the substantive motion. And this one would lapse. Councillor Woods's motion would lapse.
I agree with that, Madam Mayor. The only thing is we don't have a motion to amend.
We've got, no, that's right. That's what I'm asking the councillors for right now. Sorry.
Can I just wait?
Yes, certainly, councillor Churchill. Put some reasoning into this, councillor Churchill.
In this situation, and we've done it in the past,
Yeah.
we have a very minor amendment required here that should take nothing more than the mover and the seconder approving that minor change and putting that
That's-
to be voted on, just one off. Done.
That's the way.
I'd be
that I-
happy with that.
That's the way I would like to address it. When I'm thinking about meeting procedures. So councillor Edwards, did you second this original motion? Who's that?
Councillor Young.
Councillor Young
Oh,
did.
yes.
Right, councillor Young. So councillor Young, would
I'm
you,
happy with the S.
with the yes, right? So we're clear now that the motion is that council resolved to support the proposed street name Syntax Drive, Swansea, Cummings Place, Spring Beach, and Shale Way, Bicheno, and submit the names to Place Names Tasmania for approval. That is the motion that's on the table. Yes?
Yep.
No further
So,
discussion
so the coming bit
Cummings.
is out the window.
at this point?
I thought, okay, I thought 3 minutes ago we were gonna be.
We were,
Right,
we
that's gone.
changed our mind.
Okay,
So,
tell JP I tried.
so councillor Edwards, do you wish to make comment around the motion that's on the table now?
Just disappointed we didn't get to vote on the other one. So though I get the feeling I'd be the only one who would be voting for it. But anyway, doesn't matter. It's all good.
Councillor Woods?
Move on.
Councillor Woods, you would?
Yes.
Close debate, councillor Woods?
I'm closing debate.
You are.
Firstly, there is no aspersion from my comments to the people that that this is related to. It's it's just I found it an uncomfortable
That's okay. that's
name.
fine.
So look, and it's got nothing to do with anybody about it.
Yeah.
And I'm happy with the S, and I'm sure, and within the notes that we got on page 52.
Yep.
You know, there are spelt Cummings and other variations.
Yes.
So please, if the people that this has something to do with are upset by my comments, I meant no malice. So that being said, I've closed debate. Thank you.
Motion, all those in favour? Those against? Councillor Edwards is against. The motion is carried 7-1. Thank you. Agenda item 9 is notices of motion. There is nothing in the notices of motion. There are no petitions. In councillors' question, there is no questions on notice by councillors. Agenda item 11.2 is comments and statements. Is there any comments from councillors? Anyone have any comments? Councillor Churchill, thank you.
Yes, I just wanted to take this opportunity, if that's all right, to speak about an event that I attended last night, which was at Swansea for the National Volunteer Week. I was deputised or seconded by the Mayor to fill in for her in her absence. And I just wanted to make comment that it was an extremely interesting event. Council funded it to a small amount of money, but they had a very interesting speaker there from the Department of Police, Fire and Emergency Management, Mr. Brendan Barry, who spoke about the critical incident support management system that they have, the volunteers for fire, ambulance and police, and most informative and most really worth knowing that these structures are in place, and it's to my mind should be promoted more as a way of ensuring that volunteers go into these services, and I admire them for going into those sorts of activities to show that they actually have some cover and some support. And I believe that it is real cover and real support that they're getting from this organisation. It was a pleasure to be there, and I thank the Mayor for asking me to do it in hindsight. Thank you.
Thank you. I thank you for doing that, Councillor Churchill. Are there any other comments? I have two, if I may, with your indulgence. So on behalf of Spring Bay RSL sub-branch, I would like to acknowledge and thank Glamorgan Spring Bay Council for their support for the recent Anzac Day commemoration. The organisation of the road closure and the work done by our outside work team in ensuring the grounds looked a picture, as well as giving up their time on Anzac Day to close the road for the service, was appreciated by the President, committee members and all who attended the 2023 Anzac Day service. And I've been requested to make a statement on behalf of Mariah Voices. I have been asked to acknowledge and thank Council for their recent support of a grant that will enable the group to purchase some new equipment to enhance the sound system for outdoor performances. Although I'm not personally sure that any amount of new equipment could enhance the magnificent performances on Anzac Day by Mariah Voices. Their performance at both the dawn service and the 11 a.m. service was outstanding, and made more so by the New Zealand national anthem being performed in both Maori and English. It was an amazing experience, and both those organisations have asked me to pass on Council's thanks to Council. So thank you very much, councillors, for your support of Spring Bay RSL and Mariah Voices. Agenda item 12 is closed session. There is a recommendation on page 60. Deputy Mayor,
I'll
thank you.
move that council moves into closed session at 3:38.
Thank you. Is there a seconder, please? Councillor Edwards, thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? The motion is carried. Thank you. Thank you, councillors. Oh. Wait.